Do you find that your work culture has become so negative lately that it's so much easier for everyone to point out what's wrong and to complain and criticize? And have you noticed that bullying and incivility are now rampant in your department? Well, if this is true for you, then you're in the right place. Today on Coffee and Conversations about Nurse Bullying, we're going to talk to a recognition expert. And I want you to think about this. Recognition can actually be an antidote to a negative, critical, and bullying culture. Hi, I'm Dr. Renee Thompson. Welcome to Coffee and Conversations about Nurse Bullying. You are in for a special treat today because today I'll be having a conversation with recognition specialist Sarah McVanel, who has been in organizational development for more than 20 years, has certifications in human resources. She's a coach, and she speaks to a lot of healthcare organizations. So a lot of you in the audience, and some of you may have already actually heard Sarah talk at some point. But when I think of Sarah, I think of, okay, if I need to work on some type of reward recognition, how to make people feel good about themselves and each other, I always go to Sarah for help. So Sarah, welcome to our Coffee and Conversations about Nurse Bullying. You are actually our very first guest using our new format, and I'm so excited to share the show with you. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and a little bit about your work.
Well, recognition was the surprise thing that we discovered when the organizations that I belong to, specifically hospitals, when we would go in and try to help with incivility, because I wish that I had known, you and I had known each other years and years ago. And anytime we would go in, and you know this, Renee, anytime we would go in and we would work with a team that was imploding at the seams, there would be a lack of recognition. So we kind of stumbled upon this by accident and realized that what if in fact we could make it really easy and sustainable for people to recognize themselves, because that's what happens, right, with incivility, is people don't see their own value anymore, let alone be able to recognize and see it in each other. So now as a career, I get a chance to help organizations and teams build these scrumptious cultures where everybody feels like they belong through recognition.
I love that because, and I don't know if you're hearing this too, more and more nurses are reaching out to me, complaining to me about how negative their work cultures are. And it's funny because they're complaining to me about people complaining in their work culture, but I give them a lot of credit for even reaching out to say, I've recognized this. What do I do about it? And I'm curious to see or to know if you're experiencing that too, or more people reaching out to you with this issue.
Well, complaint is merely a poorly worded request. So what people are requesting is, I want my workplace to be a place where I can feel psychologically safe. I can feel that passion and commitment for caring. And frankly, also a place where I don't feel compassion fatigue, that I can feel compassion satisfied. And the good news is recognition can be a real healing balm in a time where people feel so depleted. So what I like to say to folks is that there's actually some research and some evidence in the first year of COVID that there was a gratitude effect. There was a bump in engagement because people felt so appreciated. Remember, I don't know if you remember those viral videos that would happen at the beginning of COVID where people would, on balconies, I think it was like in Spain and Italy, they'd be banging cups. This cacophony of acknowledgement that you'd hear echoed through cities, and you just feel so good. Even if you weren't the actual nurse in those cities, you'd feel so good. But where are the signs on the lawns? Where are the viral videos now? So it's no wonder people don't feel appreciated.
Yes, and we've been seeing that a lot too. At first, everybody was shouting about healthcare employees as heroes and nurses and physicians. And I keep thinking about the respiratory therapists.
Yes.
This entire pandemic. and I've always really appreciated some of the posts that I've seen on social media about the housekeepers.
Yes.
And just imagine being somebody in that role and getting that recognition publicly out there. But then I think about, what about my peers, recognition from my peers? And to your point, I think recognition is a way to boost morale and to really help people feel good about the work that they do and to keep showing up day after day too. But instead, I think a lot of people don't see it as a solution. They see it as, and we have an issue here, we're complaining about this, or it's easier to criticize. They want somebody to fix it, but maybe not always recognize that if we create an opportunity to truly recognize each other, that is a strategy to fix a negative culture. So I would love just any practical strategies that you have for our viewers, because that's what we're all about. Practical, easy to do ways to start, maybe not like a recognition program.
Yeah. We don't need another big thing to do. Yeah.
No. But I am a bedside nurse. I work nights. What can I do? I've only been a nurse for a year or two. What can I do to recognize my peers so that maybe I can start influencing other people to do the same?
It's such a great question, because to your point, recognition is table stakes. It is indisputably the one thing every single person needs, no matter what their title is, seniority, or level of expertise, specialties in nursing, and other, as you said, mentioned, RTs and so forth. So this is so great we're having this conversation. All of the things that I think that we can do to make it easy is how we make it sustainable. We're not trying to convince anybody of anything. Just, try it, give it a shot. So here's a few things. Well, one thing is, because healthcare loves acronyms, why don't we do what we love and create an acronym? So, Renee, my brand is FROG, Forever Recognize Others' Greatness. And that came out of working with a labor and delivery team that were imploding at the seams.
Wow.
And the team that I managed worked with them for 2 whole delicious years, and they worked hard to rebuild their culture. And so we said, hey, what's a way that when you're having a rough shift, a bad day, whole bunch of short-staffed issues, lots of moms coming in huffing and puffing and not enough people, what are you going to do to remember that recognition is your key ingredient? And somebody said FROG, Forever Recognize Others' Greatness. And they just plastered the unit with signs and visual reminders that recognition was the anchor. So they FROG. So that's where FROG came from. It came from healthcare. Yay.
Got it.
Yay. So related to that then, so let's take that and go with it. So, if you've got something to make it easy to memorable, such as an acronym, you could also make it really visible in your area. So those folks, they put up posters. You don't have to do that. Take a bulletin board that has a whole bunch of flyers of garage sales that were from 5 years ago. Why not get rid of them all and use it, the place where you put thank you cards from patients, family members, and put a little, box right there with kudos cards. I actually ended up creating them for my clients because they were too busy to even create them.
Right, that's the thing. They need it easy. Oh my gosh, I love them.
Exactly. And then somebody said, well, let's make them fun. So we, created compliment cards. So have it easy with actual pens in it. Now, granted, they'll all get stolen. So put it on a string. But seriously, make it easy, make it available, and to make it in the environment, because if it's easy and it's visible, it serves 2 purposes. One is it reminds us, because every time I look at it, even if I don't consciously register it because I'm so busy running from room to room, patient to patient, documenting whatever, it reminds me it's important. It's in my environment, my consciousness, and I'm more likely to do it because it's easy. And then, the third thing I would say is whatever works in your culture. So let's say you're extremely digital, find a way to do some kind of digital recognition. Maybe the physical board doesn't work because you're in an OR. And so there's no way, it wouldn't be hygienic. Find a way to take the way in which you normally communicate and collaborate and turn that into, and it could be your morning huddle or check-ins, post-shift debriefs, post-surgical checklist time, build it into your checklist, whatever that is, because if it's part of how you communicate and you work with each other, you're more likely to do it because it's not another thing to do.
Right. It's something. So it's taking what you currently have in place, it could be a bulletin board. And a lot of our clients, they actually have those Be Kind boards with our like be kind buttons and things. And people will write messages to each other. As you mentioned, thank you cards from patients is always really nice to see. But I know a lot of my clients, they have Facebook pages for their department. There's a new app that one of my clients just shared with me that it's a way that his entire department can communicate with each other. And he shares a lot of articles and tips. And I'll have to take a look to see if there's some type of recognition or kudos to each other that they can do on that app. Because if not, I think that'd be a really great and easy thing to, you're already using it. Why not just incorporate recognition into something like that?
Love it. And you know, you can always go and ask to your EMR or, you know, communications team, whoever is responsible for those technologies or those communication systems. And what's the worst that happens? They say, no, sorry, we can't do it, or we'll put it on the roadmap to do next year. At least you're moving the intention forward. And that's what everybody can do, is they can have these micro conversations and connections. And then they can also put great ideas about what they'd like to see, you know, futurescape. What does it look like when, not if, when we have a healthy, less toxic, bully-free environment? What will recognition have looked like to help reinforce that and sustain it? Even if you can't do it tomorrow, you can still put the ideas forward today.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And to your point, it's easy to point out what's wrong or what you can't do. But all it takes is really one person to say, okay, we may not be able to do that right now, but can we put that sort of on our future to-do list? At least it makes me feel like I'm contributing to a better future state. And there's something very practical that I share all the time with my leaders. And I think actually the audience who watches these CC videos, it really applies to them too. It's also a personal habit that I have where every single day of my life, I pick one person and I make a deliberate effort to compliment that person for something specific. And I think about, to your point, recognizing each other. Think about this. Okay, you're that nurse and, you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Think about the people who you're working with at that moment. Pick one person, walk up to them and just give them a compliment about something specific that you've noticed with them that they either do really well. It can even be something like, every time you come into work, you're always smiling. You have no idea how nice that is to just see your smiling face. Or it can even be, because some people, they're not always smiling. I know there are some nurses who I've worked with that they were amazing with certain skills. And I remember this one nurse, she could get an IV into anyone, like even somebody severely dehydrated, she could get that IV in. And I remember just saying to her, you are so good at putting in IVs. Like, how did you get to be that great? It doesn't have to be some, you know, glorious compliment. It can just be something specific. But the fact is, you're recognizing somebody for something that they do well.
And, you know, to reinforce that and to also loop it back to what you're saying around what we're seeing right now, because people are so exhausted and depleted and burnt out and compassion fatigue, individuals who are doing their very best that they can. And I say individuals because it's nurses, it's housekeeping, it's RTs, it's the nurse managers, it's everyone in healthcare. There may be a lack of being able to see what we deserve recognizing within ourselves.
Right.
So every time you recognize somebody, it reinforces that they are deserving and they add value. And even so, if all the things you've been thinking of, if that, you know, to your point around the practice, if you're thinking, I do not have it in me right now to be going and looking for recognition.
Right.
Let's just tweak the intention. And that is every single day at 2 a.m. when you're thinking of what do you want to recognize in yourself? You got to work, you were on time, you sat with the patient a little bit longer than you really truly had time for. all the things you've done up to that point in your career, even if you're having a hard time grasping something in the moment, what have you done to get you to that point to be a qualified nurse? And that is one of the things that we would notice in teams that were imploding, was that people could not articulate what value they added to the team.
Sure.
Remember, here's one last hack then to sort of round out our conversation, is every day recognize what your greatness is. And don't be overly humble, because us care professionals, we can get so caught up that part of our value is humility and serving others. And
Right.
yes, and you serve others when you have also recognized what value you give to others as well.
Oh my gosh, that is so point on, because there's a phrase that a lot of nurses use, and every time we hear it now, we're like, no, don't say that. But they'll say, I'm just the nurse.
Yeah, no just.
Or I'm just doing my job. I'm like, no, this is you. And I love that, because we're talking about recognition and recognizing your peers, but it's also recognizing yourself. And we have such a hard time doing that. And I know myself, working at the bedside and all the roles that I've had as a nurse, there were so many days that instead of thinking of all the great things that I did that day, I thought of the things that I didn't do well. Or that I didn't do enough for those patients. And that's that mindset that I think we really need to shift in healthcare, especially now more than ever. And it's not to say that complimenting your peers and having, a bulletin board that really reinforces kindness and gratitude and all of that is going to solve a bullying and incivility problem. It can be an antidote to start down that path, because all of that influences other people. And the more people that are showing up, looking for reasons to recognize each other, it spreads across the department. And Sarah, I can't thank you enough for being on our show and for sharing your wisdom. And just, if you can let our viewers know, if they want to learn more about how to frog their department, because I know you have so many great resources. I've used them, okay? I've shared them with other people. Where can they find you?
Yeah, come on over to greatnessmagnified.com. Under cool stuff, there's all kinds of resources there, including on compassion, satisfaction, and thank you so much for having me on, and an opportunity to serve our amazing healthcare providers. It's just such an honor and a gift to be with all of you. So thank you, and please use those resources with huge love from us at Greatness Magnified to you. And thank you, Renee, for everything you're doing with the healthcare of incivility and bullying.
I know we have such important work to do. And I'm so grateful that you took time out of your busy day to really share your expertise with our viewers. And as Sarah said, please make sure you check out her website. We'll have her information in the description and the comments below. And of course, if you need help addressing workplace bullying and incivility, go to healthyworkforceinstitute.com, where you can find more resources. So until our next coffee conversation, be kind, take care, and stay connected.